Hey guys, don't mind my demeanor this video. I haven't slept in 5 days. I got some Calamity from a guy behind a jack-in-a-box, and now I can taste color and see noise. Calamity is a massive mod for Terraria that has been widely regarded as one of, if not the best mods for this game, which also happens to have had some recent drama, but I'm not a drama channel, and the person who was the problem dropped out of the team anyway, so I'm just gonna proceed as normal and let the comment section give context if needed. The mod touts not only new content like bosses and items, but also things like new mechanics, reworks on existing details, and quality of life changes to make the overall experience feel better. On top of this, the community surrounding this mod is a whole environment of its own. It's practically a whole new game built on the backbone of another game, which is impressive, but is it good? Is it bad? Does it eat your cousin while they sleep? Well, stay tuned and find out. But before we begin, I did end up with more than just Calamity for reasons I'll get into later. The other 3 mods being Magic Storage, Boss Checklist, and Wiki This. Just wanted to disclose that. Also, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Or don't, I mean you do you, not your mom. Let's kick this off with the good bits. This mod actually solves a few of the problems I had with vanilla pretty much as soon as your first boss fight happens. You remember that whole thing I said about classing not being a factor till after Wall of Flesh? Well, in this mod, it's immediately in effect literally at the start of the game with the bag. The starter bag actually provides you with all the gear you need to understand what classing is and, to get started with your class at the start of the game. On top of this, the mod also makes sure that every boss and event has at least one item for each class, making sure to really establish the class types as you play. As you'll probably see, I ended up rocking Mage for most of the gameplay here. Also, remember how I talked about how difficulty felt abruptly harder after Wall? Well, now not only are there more bosses in between the vanilla fights, but the fights have been tweaked to be more understandable for the stage of the game they're intended to be killed in. It makes the game feel a little smoother and adds a pretty satisfying step-by-step progression. The game's progression of gear and bosses also got reworked to be a bit more of a process, while at the same time opening up more for the player to do without the old prerequisites. Examples being the ability to fight Plantera right out of the gate in hard mode, life fruits also being available, the Empress of Light is also able to be spawned early, which I found out the hard way in the classic Terraria fashion of accidental wildlife murder. 5 separate times. Meanwhile, all the medals cannot be spawned in by breaking demon altars anymore, but are now in fact spawned in as groups after certain bosses are killed, those bosses being the Wall of Flesh and the 3 mech bosses. It creates a larger air of freedom, but also balances out with a clearly set line of progression that a player can easily follow. The mod also adds tons of new biomes, almost all of them genuinely giving me goosebumps from how downright gorgeous they are. My personal favorites being the Brimstone Crag and Astral Infection. Such gorgeous set pieces. It makes me wish I hadn't been bum rushed so I could enjoy them more. And can we talk about the music? The music in this mod is phenomenal. Unironically, some of the best music I've ever heard. You've already been hearing some of it in the background of this video, but I highly recommend just going and checking it for yourself. My personal favorites in the mod being Wasteland, Sanctuary, and Raw Unfiltered Calamity. Especially Sanctuary. Gives me like a Zora's Domain from Ocarina of Time vibe. DM Dokuro actually knocked it out of the fucking park with these ones. Genuinely stellar job. Dude had no business going this hard on the soundtrack, but I'm glad they fucking did. The new bosses are legendary in quality, to a point that I think I'll be remembering them for quite a while. Calamity's clone? Dope as hell. Honestly, one of my favorite bosses in this mod. Plaguebringer Goliath? Remembered for all the wrong reasons. Fucking best. Point is, you will definitely remember all the bosses and monsters in this mod. They're so iconic and unique, outside of multiple different worms, but still. Actually, now I think about it, why are there so many worm bosses? The new bosses actually feel mostly balanced, most of them fitting right into where they're intended to be fought at. Most of them. Astrum Days should not have this much health, I'm just gonna put that out there. The new items feel very distinct as well, and never felt like I was just using a weapon or armor set that was already in the game. On top of this, a lot of the items that were previously only gained through chest loot were given a crafting recipe, making things like the Terror Spark boots and so forth less reliant on the world gen being nice to you, which I'm a fan of implemented consistency. And now that I think about it, I've done this whole video without talking about mechanics really, haven't I? There are 2 new meters known as Rage and Adrenaline, both of which have very unique ways they're built up of very similar effects. Rage builds up for being around enemies, and Adrenaline builds up for not taking damage during a boss fight, and both of them give you a damage boost that can actually stack up with each other, so if you have both ready, you can pop off both and get a large damage increase during a boss fight. Which in turn means that if you're skilled enough, don't get hit and stick around the enemy long enough, you can actually build up the meter really fast and knock out a boss fight way faster than you should have. It's a pretty neat mechanic, and I think overall it helps with keeping you more engaged with the fight. They also added a meter based on how much flight time you have left, which honestly, why is this not just base game? Like, I find it so annoying whenever I'm fighting a boss in vanilla Terraria and I don't really know how much time of flight I really have left. This meter's a godsend. Honestly, probably the best addition in this mod. There's also brand new mechanics in the armor itself, like parry, dodge, and toggleable powers, all of which usually further complementing the class archetypes you're playing as. There are new accessories with mechanics or effects that have never been seen in vanilla before. Mana Polarity was such a dope idea. Making an accessory that took health regen away to make regen for mana faster and allowed you to leech life is simple, yet effective. Also, strangely enough, there's lore. But that's a lot of words, and I'm not reading them. I'm a mechanics guy, not game theory. I'm sure it's probably good though. Honestly, the content added is so dense that I don't think I could even begin to fathom explaining it all. I can only imagine printing out the wiki entirely would result in something at the bare minimum thesaurus-sized. With that being said though, unlike the seemingly endless amount of positive or interesting changes, the cons are few and easy to point out, so let's talk. Calamity, believe it or not, shares a lot of similar issues with the vanilla game, but in some cases more so. The wiki game problem is even larger with this mod. Adding tons of new content means tons of potentially useful items you might not be made aware of unless there was an easy way to access that information. Like, the guide may help you to tell all the recipes, but that's only if you have one of the materials. A good chunk of the bosses in this mod only spawn through a forced spawn item, which would require you to know what they were in some way. And I'm sure the lore pieces hint to it, but honestly I couldn't tell you because there's so much to dig through that I couldn't be asked. If they do tell you, feel free to tell me in the comments. Now fortunately, most players of Terraria who've completed the vanilla game are already well versed in the ways of the wiki plunging, so this isn't exactly new territory, but I'm bringing it up because the mod does actively make this issue even more of an issue. Also, if you install boss checklist, it has Calamity support, so that's a solution to this problem as well. Which, side tangent, vanilla honestly should just implement this officially. It's legitimately such a good addition that even has a no sneaky peeky mode, so I was able to sort of learn about the bosses myself. Anyways, back to the point. Another thing this mod shares in common with vanilla is inventory bloat. The mod has a far worse inventory bloat problem than vanilla by a landslide. Fortunately, I knew this going in as I was warned to get magic storage beforehand, but if you didn't know, then holy shit did you probably have a lot of chests. Because I have 1,000 unique items in the chest for magic storage that are a mix of vanilla and modded content, and I'm still not done with the mod. Needless to say, magic storage is not optional. It's a fucking requirement. Also, magic storage is just a good mod in general, and I highly recommend you even play vanilla with it. It's such a good mod. Though you might notice in footage a bug where show all recipes ended up behind the filter buttons. It's been fixed already, so don't sweat. I'm sorry, just wanted to gush about this mod real quick. Back to Calamity. And here's a minor issue real quick. The mod leaves all of your keys needed to use the mod's content as unbound, so in order to use stuff like Rage and Adrenaline, you have to actively set those up before you start, which just feels kinda strange. Might be something to do with modding Terraria. This is pretty new territory for me, so I don't know. I'm gonna point it out anyways. This next one is nitpicking, but while the art in this mod is beautiful, like absolutely stunning, some of the best sprite work I've ever seen, having it put next to the Terraria base game style feels kinda jarring. Like, here's Eye of Cthulhu, looking like its usual self, iconic, simplistic. And then we have Astrum Arius. This has to be the art equivalent of Coughing Baby versus Nuclear Bomb. Mind you, I'm not saying Terraria looks bad. Actually, there's plenty of times the game looks unironically beautiful, but it's the clashing art styles that rustles my brain a certain way. And I know this is probably a large work order, but honestly, I'd love to see this mod get an official texture pack to help make the whole game feel more in line with the mod's content. Not gonna push for it though, given how much of a job that'd be, but shooting ideas nonetheless. An issue that's more specifically with the mod is questionable design choices I came upon during my time playing. For example, there's these labs scattered around the map that you can break into and secure loot in, all of them having some sort of unique item and core to incentivize you locating them in the first place. This is fun, but there's a particular lab that made my eyes shoot wide open. The lab that sits just above Hell in the lava section of the underground. Specifically, this drill you can get, which is a rideable drilling mount. It can be picked up with literal starting gear, so surely they wouldn't let us. Rock and stone! I think the footage speaks for itself. I get its point is for arena building, but what in the shit? This is obscenely strong to be giving a player, and for the record, this is pre-hard mode. This is literally the start of the game, and I've been given the power of the Industrial Revolution. I have just started the game, and I am committing eco-terrorism. They also give you a pair of pretty serviceable wings in pre-hard mode. Now, to be entirely fair, these didn't ruin the game or make the game unenjoyable by any means, but it does speed up portions of the game if you know how to abuse it. I don't think it was intended for me to speed mine all of the pre-hard mode ore so I could get top-notch gear immediately, or for me to break into the sunken deep within the first couple hours of game time. Granted, the drill matches your pickaxe strength, but it doesn't justify boring through the crust of the earth to fast travel into areas I shouldn't be in yet, especially dungeon. Another bit of noticeable design issues actually might sound like a well done moment, but the modded content definitely has a higher difficulty level than the vanilla bosses, despite the fact that most of the vanilla ones got reworked to be a little more in line with the scaling difficulty. Now, before this sounds like I'm bitching about things being difficult, I'm not. I'm actually talking about the fact that some bosses that are meant to be fought before a vanilla one end up being harder than the vanilla ones, so the scaling just feels off. To understand this, my first boss I killed was Eye of Cthulhu, but the mod actually intends on you fighting Desert Scourge beforehand, and I died more to Desert Scourge than Eye of Cthulhu. And I'm going to preemptively strike the comments saying that's because I'm used to it by saying they literally redid the attack patterns for the mod. The fight was similar, but not the same. Also, Desert Scourge was pretty much just Eater of Worlds, but it shoots arcing projectiles, and halfway into the fight, it vanishes and you get pestered by the Desert Nuisances, which boy howdy live up to their fucking name. And those nuisances don't require the ground, despite being worms. You can see the difficulty difference in these fights already. You're meant to fight EOC after Scourge, but by looking at my trophy room, you can actually see the exact order I killed the bosses for this review. EOC is dead front. I'm just saying that either the fights before the vanilla ones need to be toned down, or the vanilla ones need to be toned up more to be in line with the smooth difficulty curve I was talking about. Just a thought. I know it was a long thought, but a thought nonetheless. And this next one is kind of a minor one, but I think that if you intend on the player fighting certain bosses at a certain point, then I'd maybe consider changing some of the vanilla one's spawn conditions. EOC being able to spawn from its usual methods isn't the worst thing in the world, but with its new attack patterns and the buttery smooth progression if you fight the bosses in order, I think it'd actually be better to change its auto-spawn condition to be once you defeat Desert Scourge. Especially since EOC has a manual spawn item if you really wanted to fight it early anyways. Also, being able to fight Empress of Light super early into hard mode is really funny, and it was funny accidentally spawning here, but accidentally doing so 5 separate times because some of the spells have nuclear range is still technically a problem no matter how funny I thought it was. Again, I'd say make your butterfly spawn in after the recommended boss is killed, and then maybe add in an item to manually spawn her yourself if you really wanted to fight her early. That way, it feels more like a deliberate decision than it does feel like, oopsie, I accidentally killed the random butterfly in the middle of a blood moon. And this next one is my last complaint, but honestly it's more of a compliment to the mod if anything, but it has done something irreparable that can never be reversed to my life. I don't think I can ever go back to playing vanilla again. The amount of quality of life changes, new content, mechanical additions, recipe changes, and so on genuinely make it to where I think if I go back to vanilla, I'll just find myself being pulled back here. The mod just does so much good that I cannot see Terraria the same way again. Why go looking for chests to get something in vanilla when you can fight bosses for the resources to craft the accessory you need? Why sleep for hours hoping for rain when you can force it with an item? Why wait till after Wall of Flesh for classing to become a factor when you can play Calamity and have it be in effect from the start? Genuinely, it's astounding to me just how well put together this mod is. It's a no-brainer why it's popular. It's genuinely a great mod. Calamity is a marvel in mod making for Terraria, and maybe for games in general. The amount of sheer effort, love, and genuine inspiration here is noticeable and endearing. It's crazy how swiftly this mod is taking its place as one of my all-time favorite gaming experiences, and I highly recommend you give it a spin. Which might sound weird given the fact that this mod has had its fair bit of drama lately involving its now ex-lead dev Fabzal, but Fabzal stepped down, so I have high hopes that the team will be able to get this mod back on track and hopefully nothing else vile happens with any members. Probably. If another dev in this team gets canned just as I endorse this mod, I swear to G.